So, let's talk about it. Now this morning you may not want to talk about it. You may wonder what I'm going to say. Most of us at some point in our life had words that have stunned us. Words that have hurt us. And even stopped us right in our tracks. And some of us have even had a visceral reaction to words that have been spoken to us. What about the words that we have spoken to others? Like most churches, we have policies and procedures. And most policies and procedures are put in place based on what's happened before. So if it's in a policy, it's been a problem before. We have a policy that there are ways to go about things, and there are ways not to. We use the biblical way of speaking to a person that we have issues with. So if we have an issue with somebody, we go speak to them directly. If we don't get satisfaction with that, maybe we bring somebody else along. If that doesn't work, we go to like the team leader or the pastor, or if it's about the pastor, the vice moderator. We have a way of doing things. And that's easy, right? Yeah, you got it. No. It seems that we don't all work that way, especially when we're passionate about things that are not quite right in our eyes. But it's something that we need to do to be a healthy church. Because if we're going to be healthy when people come into us, we need to have healthy ways of talking about things. That's what that passage in James kind of says. You know, James is saying the tongue is just a beast. And these days, gossip, oh my gosh, gossip is so much easier on social media, isn't it? Those of you that use social media, oh my gosh, I found out so much stuff on social media. Someone puts something up and we assume it's true. And I know most of you know what assume means. You make out of you and me. Sometimes those things that are put on social media take around away, and we used to call it, when I was a child, Chinese whispers. I don't know where that saying comes from, and I hope it's not derogatory, but that's what we used to call it. We'd sit in a circle, tell the person next to us something. By the time it went all the way back around the circle, it was nothing like when it started out. And we think that's just a game. But actually, it's not a game, it's life. And that's what happens in life. You know, things that we see on social media and in the news sometimes. It was only when I moved to America that I found out there's actually websites that try to find things in things and put them up as conspiracy theories. I knew nothing about them. There's something about a pizza place and somebody, some years ago, a few years ago, that started this whole thing where people were berating other people. Anyway, it's so easy in this world. And there are people who love to draw attention to their cause, and so we'll put even more up there and tell more people. But what do? Do we fact check? There's some wonderful websites out there that we can fact check if we read something. But there's also, we could go to the person if we hear something, if we see something, if we're told something. Now, I have a question for you. Who is the worst member of this church? Oh.
I'll take credit.
Oh. I didn't have you in mind then. Who is the worst member of this church? So those of you that are not members going, phew, it can't be me. And those of you that are members are looking around going, I wonder which one it is. Some of you may even be going, oh, please, Lord, don't let that. You should know better. I would not name and shame anybody like that. The worst member of our church is our tongues. Our tongues. Our worst member of any place is a tongue. And it's itself, it's harmless. But like most things, when it's used, it can do so much damage. And that first reading from James this morning reminds us about that. It reminds us that it's been the worst member of society for hundreds and thousands of years. And yet still, we haven't changed it. And so how right is that reading that says, we can't tame the tongue? Because obviously we haven't been able to. How many of you in this room can honestly say you have not used your tongue in a way that is not godlike? I know there was a few double readers. You know what I mean. Have you done bad with your tongue? Trouble on the front. We can shut somebody down in an instant with our tongues. Or we can gather support for something and shut someone down over a period of months with our tongues. And our tongues can be the vilest thing ever in existence. And yet, it's that same tongue that we use to praise God. Wow, God, you are awesome. We sung indescribable. Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary. Oh, Lord our God, when I am in awesome wonder. And then what do we do when we leave the building? In fact, sometimes it's not even when we leave the building. Sometimes our little quiet tongue in our head is saying stuff before we've even left. We have the possibility to change things. We have the possibility to think before we speak. The tongue is mightier than the sword. When I was young, there's a little rhyme, I don't know if you said it here. Sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Who said that? It's rubbish. Seriously, it's rubbish. My broken bones have healed, but my heart didn't heal from those words that caused me emotional pain. And I don't know about you, but when you are disregarded because you have spoken out and somebody has put you down, that hurts more. Words can cause extreme pain and can lead to self-harm and to suicide. The absence of words, sometimes, it's like speaking out with social justice, and that's not the area I want to speak on today, but that is still there, that sometimes we do need to speak out. But at the end of the John reading today, the crowds were talking about Jesus. Did you hear that bit at the end? What were they saying? Oh yeah, he's wonderful. Oh no, don't trust him, he's awful. I can imagine it now. Yeah, he's great, he's lovely, I love him. But only to each other. Little whispers to each other. No, I don't trust him. No, he's awful. But would they say those words out loud with truth and with pride? No, because it's much easier to have a bitch when you're in a little quiet place. Much easier. Jesus spoke about behaviors that didn't build up the dominion of God, but wore it down for personal gain. And it isn't actually hard to see when people do this. And yet sometimes we get sucked into it and feed into it because we're part of a crowd. And we don't want to speak out. We don't want to speak against something that's wrong. So how do we stop this today? I think part of it we have to look at our own agenda. What is our agenda when we're in a conversation, when we're listening to somebody? Is our agenda to hear that person, or is our agenda to make sure we are heard and that our correct way is heard? Sometimes it's because we don't even spend the time to listen to people. And I'm guilty of that before the service. Somebody will come and talk to me and I've got stuff going on and I'm like, yeah. And then afterwards I'm maybe on the drive home, I think, oh no, I know that person talked to me, but I can't for the life of me think what it was. But we all do it. want us to look at a few words. On the screen, I have a little emoji with a finger up at its face, and the first word is stop. I hope the first word is stop. Silent. Yeah, go back. It should have been stop, but it's silent anyway. It's the same thing. To stop and think about what we are going to say. Is it our truth, or is it true? You see, sometimes our truth and true are not the same. Sometimes what we believe is because we think that we're right. We know we're right because we're the most perfect people in the world.
Yeah.
But when we stop and think about when we're going to say something, make sure it's truth. Look inward, because inward reflection means that you are connecting with the divine and that you can hear the voice of God. So when you speak, you're not just speaking your words, but you're hopefully speaking the words that God has placed on your heart. It also means that maybe, just maybe, you can hear the voice of God. Lean. Lean on others. And by this, I don't mean gather a crowd up and make sure that they all think the way that you do. But lean on others to get clarity, not to bring them into the conversation. Lean on others to make sure that what you're thinking and what you're experiencing is not coming from a personal place, but is a truth. Expect God to give you the wisdom to know whether to speak or not. Notice not when to speak or not, whether to speak or not. Noiseless is the absence of noise, but it doesn't mean that people are not engaging. In fact, somebody may be engaging on a whole new level than we've experienced. You see, sometimes we expect answers the minute that we ask a question. I'm like that. I've asked a question, what's the answer? Come on. And if somebody's silent, I'm like, did you not hear me? I want an answer. But actually in that silence, sometimes we get more clarity than we could ever get. Try to let your spiritual self be the one that responds to people. And when you see something that you don't like, if your secular, let's call it, self responds, quite often it's like, oh, I hate that. I was reminded, I think I've shared this before, I was reminded when somebody, I can't even remember what the food was, but they mentioned this food and I went, oh, that's disgusting. And they said, don't yuck my yum. Because for that person, it was gorgeous. It was a beautiful food that filled them. Sometimes we have to try to let our spiritual self, not our loud voice, be the one that responds. So we need to listen. Stop and really listen so that we can hear much more. So I said, call the sermon, let's talk about it. Part of talking is listening. You see, I could talk for hours, but if I don't listen, I learn nothing. Intentionally seeking out the truth. When we hear something, we hear a perspective of it. We do not necessarily hear the truth. We hear what one person feels about something, what one person experiences about something. But when we intentionally seek out the truth, then we can allow God to help us to discern. Stop. Stop people spreading words around. That's so easy to say. It's so hard to do. When people say to you, oh, did you hear? You say, well, was I supposed to hear? Sometimes people say to me, Well, you didn't tell me that. Why would I? If it's not my news, I should not be sharing it. If you have some exciting news, you really want me to go around half the congregation so that when you get something, they go, oh yeah, I know. Equally the other way. If somebody says, oh, did you know so-and-so did this? And you listen to that, and then you think, oh, they're a bad person for doing that. And then you go tell somebody else, and before you know it, 15 people think this person is a bad person, where actually what they did was a good thing. But one person had a different perspective. Take. Each of us is required to take affirmative action to build a healthy church. This church has been built on healthy actions, and we need to continue that growth by standing on a foundation of truth. Each of us, not just one person, not the pastor, not the board, not the building committee, not the social committee, the fundraising committee. Each one of us is responsible for growing, building this church in truth. Educate. Educate ourselves on every single level. Don't take everything everybody says for granted. I could stand up here and give you so much rubbish because I got a master's, you're going to believe it. Well, some of you won't. Then you might want to believe and listen to them. But if something doesn't sit right with you, educate yourself about it. Because chances are, if something doesn't sit right, it probably isn't right. Now, it could be somebody has made a mistake. I may have said something wrong in the sermon. The other week in the sermon, after the sermon, Sandra said to me, I got the names muddled up. I said, the name's the wrong way around. She said, it's okay. But if sometimes we hear something, and then we're like, that's wrong. We'll go to the next person and say, oh, I know that was wrong. I know that was wrong. And before you know it, 10 people think that what was said was wrong. Sometimes we need to educate ourselves whether it was right or whether it was wrong. And if it was wrong, who do you go to? Oh, the person that said it, not the other 10 people. Never, and this is, in that the reading from John, never be afraid to speak about your faith journey. When we talk about, let's talk about it. Let's talk about who we are, our faith journey, our spiritual journey. I know I shared this when I first started here. And I went around and met everybody. And had coffee and tea or whatever I had, brownies. The chocolate came as I was here a few weeks and people learned. And I learned about people's faith journey that it was a privileged position for me. That people said to me, perhaps what they didn't say to others in the congregation, because they thought that nobody would like the way that they thought, spiritually. But actually by sharing, some of those people have empowered other people to know that we do not all think the same way. We do not all think of Jesus the same way, God the same way, Holy Spirit the same way, and that is okay. When we talk to each other, never assume you know what somebody's going to say. People change. They change their views. They change their opinions. They change their spiritual journey. So when we talk about it, allow people to share who they are, where they are, and then listen and empower. Silent and listen are the same letters, just moved around. When we're silent and we listen, We learn about each other. We learn about God. Our silence in some matters means that we get to listen properly. We get to listen for the truth. We listen for the small voice of God guiding us. Listening allows us to truly engage with God. So yes, let's talk about it. But let that talking be with our heart as well as our tongue. And our tongue be a new weapon of love. Not the worst member of this church.
Here this morning to tell you about a wonderful opportunity. You know what it's like when your best friend's birthday rolls around and it's time to pick out a gift? You know your friend so well that it's a given that whatever you select will be perfect. And even if it isn't quite perfect, your friend will love it because it's from you. That is what it's like to give to God. God gives us so much, and it is wonderful to give some of that back. Many here give in multiple ways. Their talents are used on the worship or music teams. Their hard work is spent preparing for worship or beautifying the grounds. And time is spent working towards social justice. These things are so important and much appreciated. What a privilege, too, to give of our financial blessings. We are so fortunate. We have this welcoming community that is growing and providing a loving force in our community. It feels so good to contribute and be a part of that. Please rise as you are able and join me in singing, "Oh, Give Thanks to Our God." The ushers will come forward and we will joyfully give our gifts to God.
To our God, for whose love will never end. Oh, give thanks to our God, for whose love will never end. Oh, give thanks to our God, for whose love will never end. Oh, give thanks to our God, for whose love will never end. To God, sing your praise to God, tell the world of what has been done. Fill the nations with celebrations to welcome God who comes. Oh, give thanks to our God, for whose love will never end. Oh, give thanks to our God, for whose love will never end. Thanks to the fruitful earth, the sun, the seasons, the rain. For the joys of the good creation, the life and breath it sustains. Oh, give thanks to our God, for whose love will never end. Oh, give thanks to our God, for whose love it never will end. Let the heavens rejoice before God, the earth and all it contains. All creation in jubilation join in the shout, the Lord reigns. Oh, give thanks to our God, for whose love will never end. Oh, give thanks to our God, for whose love it never will end. Let the hearts of all those who seek it be happy now in God's love. Let their face look up and gaze at the gracious smile from above. Oh, give thanks to our God, for whose love will never end. Oh, give thanks to our God, for whose love it never ends.